Okay, folks, here we are, Gameweek 227. Some interesting card recommendations for you, but first let's look at just the payout structure. So if we go back a week, remember it was a Champions League week, midweek, and so a lot of these numbers up here in the rare divisions are as you'd expect, maybe a little lower to actually win a card. That was kind of a surprise, and actually significantly lower down here in the limited cards. I think part of this was they were still giving out a healthy amount of cards. Maybe not so much up in rare, but definitely down in limited. And so you saw that you could come away with a card with a pretty low score. So that was nice to see. Unfortunately, not replicated this week. So a couple kind of flags I have. So first off, not as many cards given out. We can see, a high percentage payout right now for Champion Europe. Of course, this will come down. There's still, 12, 15 hours to go until the cutoff. And, so this percentage will go down, but certainly if you can put together a roster, go for it. But I mean, the fact that there's a small amount of cards, I think we'll see that the winning points payouts will be in back to kind of 320s and things like that. So the special weekly rather is 2021 and 22 cards only in the rare, super rare, and unique spot. So, but again, just a handful of cards being given out. Down in limited, really quite a drop in payouts. As we said, last midweek, there was 1,200 given out. And that seems to be fairly standard. And now we see quite a bit less in the All-Star and the others. So that's a bit of a surprise. The other one for me is just, Sorare has been talking about dynamic reward system. This is this new system. It's been in place for several months now. And it feels dynamic just by looking at the numbers, the number position of cards that pay out. And yet when we look at this one, we actually just see it seems a little bit more scripted, if you will. The numbers kind of are round off. They end in a common number, or they're in like digits of 10. And, I'll show you what I mean here. So if we just look at limited, like U23 pays out at 250, 75, 15, 5. And then, that also happens in Challenger Europe, or you have something like Champion Europe where it's like sevens, 277, 97, 27. So I saw this kind of all throughout. I could show you all the others and you'd see this pattern as well. So it just feels like this is the first game week where it felt like it was sort of almost rigidly put in numbers that followed a pattern, as opposed to what they seem to be touting as a dynamic reward system where the numbers are just kind of all over the map. They could end in any digit. There's no real pattern to them at all. So I'm just curious about that. I don't understand why they would do that, why they're being a little bit more deliberate in the numbers. Maybe it's easier to communicate just to new entrants and things like that. Not sure. But anyways, there we are with that. Have a look. You can check out the spreadsheet yourself. If you missed the last video, what I've also started to do, if you scroll down and across, you'll start to see that I've actually started to plot these numbers. Not every single game week, like the ones that don't have a lot of games in them, I've left out intentionally, but ones that have sort of a certain number, you can then compare here and see for the rare divisions sort of how it's been tracking over time. And you can do the same with limiteds down here. It's a bit tough to see, maybe. You have to really kind of zoom in, but hopefully it's helpful. And again, the link to this spreadsheet is below. So now into recommendations. So one of the key announcements or something I found interesting was that just about a week or 2 weeks ago, they announced that they would be counting the African Cup of Nations. So that's starting up in January, and we'll get a bunch of new matches to follow and things like that. There might be a special weekly devoted to it and things like that. And so what I wanted to do was recommend some players that are maybe under the radar. And I'm going to do this kind of in increments. I think a lot of people will focus on the big kind of stars that play in France or Germany or England or whatnot. And but I mean, those guys are already going to be priced pretty high. They're already playing for their domestic club. They're already sort of known household names, if you will. I'm not going to see a lot of value in that. I'll definitely hunt around and see if that's in a future video. But what I wanted to do for this one was actually look at players that were starting to maybe trend downward a little because they're in a league that's either not playing currently or is up heading into a bit of a prolonged break. And so what we might see is this nice kind of confluence of a drop in price mixed with this announcement of the Cup of Nations, and thus you might actually be able to get him, this player, at a pretty cheap price, and then be able to use him right away, plus have the upside of when their league returns to action in the late winter, early spring. So let's look at, a good example of this one for me, Jonathan Mensah. So Jonathan Mensah, he is really a veteran, really steady player for Columbus. And, like if you look at his SO5 scores across the MLS season, like pretty steady, especially in this kind of cluster here, kind of that almost perfect one that you'd want to put in for your Ethereum threshold in the rare division. Nice and cheap, especially cheap and limited, basically free, and certainly very affordable at the rare price as well. So nothing too special, I suppose. But what's great is Ghana's the sort of number 2 favorite, just behind Egypt for the tournament. So they should go pretty far. They should get a lot of playing time and whatnot. And Mensah has been pretty steady for them. He played, for some reason, he missed these 2 matches, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was end of the MLS season, if there were some travel concerns or issues or what have you. But he played in October and in September as well. So definitely, I think worth a shot that he'll get regular playing time. Here he is, the center back there. And like I said, he did for the others as well. So for that price, I think it's kind of a nice investment to see if he plays well for Ghana, gets a number of games through January. And then the MLS season starts a bit early this year in 2022. It's mid-Feb. So basically, after that tournament, you just have to wait a couple of weeks and then he's back in action. So I really like this guy as just sort of a veteran purchase, if you will. Max-Alain Gradel is the next one for me. So Ivory Coast, they're kind of middle of the pack in terms of odds of winning the tournament, but certainly a strong side. And what we see here is his price is a little higher, of course, because he's playing well. He's a starter in the Turkish league, and I don't know why this isn't showing up. There we go. And he puts up some really strong numbers. So this is somebody that the Turkish league doesn't shut down by any stretch, but it does get a bit light in kind of mid to late January. And there's a few other kind of spotty stretches. So this is somebody who you might see maybe not so much trending down, but at least, he's only got a couple cards out there right now, but at least maybe at a price that's probably fair at the moment. And does well for club, and then for country, he's been a pretty steady contributor for them, sort of playing on, I think it's the right side. Let me double check here. Sorry, my computer's being a little bit spotty, but yeah, so kind of tends to play here. What I saw over the last sort of 4 or 5 matches was that he either started or he was kind of a first sub coming on in 60. So, pretty nice forward line here. Holler's pretty solid. Some really strong players from a domestic point of view. And so, he should get, if he gets the playing time that it would seem, then, could be a nice little boost for you in January. And then the next 2 for me is a little bit more on my theory, I guess, around, again, a league kind of shutting down, if you will. So Russia's going to, the Russian league's going to shut down for several weeks into, I believe it starts up in February. Is it first week or second week of February? So, and so here's some players whose price in theory should be coming down somewhat. You see Ijuki here for CSK. This looks relatively flat, but I mean, the fact that you can get them right now for somewhere in this kind of 0.17 and 0.011 is a bit of a downward trend from, say, where he was even just a month ago. So decent price. He does well domestically, so I like that. Kind of a nice, affordable forward, and he's young. He's 23, and he's U23 for 6 more months. And then the other one, and we'll get to the club in a sec, but Ahmed Musa, so a little bit more of a veteran, so 29. Also, he's a sub, so he comes off the bench, so not so strong from a domestic point of view, but as you can see, sort of just gets some kind of sub minutes. He tends to play every game. They sub him on, which is great, but and his prices are reflective of this. I mean, dirt cheap and limited, and reasonable, I suppose, for a forward. But if we look at their matches of late, the worry I have is that I'm not sure who's going to start and how often. They both tend to get a decent amount of playing time, but oftentimes it's off the bench and things like that. This Cape Verde match was really different. It had a kind of a different lineup. It was hard to kind of make anything from it. The other one for me is Osimhen is injured for, I believe he's back in January or something like that. So he may not actually play at all. So, but what we see here is Ejuki tends to play more as a midfielder. Some of the cards that you'll see, I believe his cards have a mix of forward and mid, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see what a new one. No, they're all forward. Yeah. Okay, great. So he's listed as a forward, but for Nigeria, he tends to play mid. And if we go so Musa and Ejuki didn't play at all, the previous one, but if we go before that, we see that, again, Osimhen's taking a bit of spot there. This is a replica. Musa came in and Ejuki came in. And I think is when we got into October, we saw that it changed up a little more. There, Musa got some time. Ejuki, again, came in as a sub. And there's one of these where Ejuki started. I hope I'm saying his name right. I've been saying it a lot in the last 2 minutes, so my apologies. There he is. So he started here. And I think Musa subbed in. So, you may not be able to rely on them for sure in terms of getting consistent playing time during this tournament. But at the same time, sometimes it's hard finding forwards that maybe are dipping in price that you can potentially use. So I like both of them maybe as a bit of investments. If they get a bit of playing time, score a goal here or there, maybe you start to see that they get a boost if you were to flip them, or the fact that they're returning back to their club at the end of the tournament. And especially in the case of Ejuki, he's a pretty solid player, and like I said, U23. So there you have it. Those are guys I'm looking at. The next one, I'm going to look at some of the players that maybe are subs on their main club domestically in some of the bigger leagues, Bundesliga and so on, and see if we can see some value there where they might be no doubt starters for their national team, but subs domestically. So stay tuned for that one. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon. Bye.